to Subliminal Signals. I'm Carlton, and we're 8 episodes into this journey of identifying and resetting the thought patterns that keep us stuck in cycles we don't even recognize. And today's episode is actually very personal for me. At almost 50, I know this subliminal signal intimately. And I've heard it whispered by many friends and some clients, and yes, in my own mind. It's that voice that shows up when you see someone pursuing a dream, starting something new, making a bold change. And it says, good for them, but that ship has sailed. I'm too old for that now. Today's signal is, I'm too old to start over. And if you just felt that familiar resignation, that sense of opportunities having passed you by, this episode is going to challenge everything you think you know about age, timing, and what's possible in the second half of life. So let me start by calling out the biggest lie that our culture tells us. That innovation, creativity, and new beginnings belong exclusively to the young. That after a certain age, whether it's 30 or 40 or 50, you've missed your window for significant change. I mean, even the idea of certain social media things being like age gated to a certain extent, right? So, like TikTok is considered the social media platform for young people or younger people, right? So, the fact that I'm here at almost 50, I'm probably a little bit outside of the range for TikTok. But I don't agree with that. This mythology is everywhere. We celebrate 25-year-old entrepreneurs, but we overlook the 55-year-old who just launched his first business. We marvel at the college dropout who becomes a CEO, but ignore the retiree who becomes an artist. We're conditioned to believe that life happens in the first act and everything after that is just maintenance. But here's what that mythology ignores. It ignores the experience, the wisdom, the clarity, and the unique perspective that only comes from having lived. When you're 20, you have energy and possibility. When you're 50, you have skills and networks, financial resources, and most importantly, you know who you are and you know what matters. Yet somehow we've been convinced that these advantages are actually disadvantages, that experience makes us outdated, that wisdom makes us inflexible, that clarity about what we want makes us too late. It's time to reset that story. I mean, because here's what's happening in your brain when you tell yourself you're too old. Your brain has something called like stereotype embodiment theory. This is when you internalize negative age stereotypes. Like your brain literally starts to live down to those expectations. Like you start to live down to those expectations. You think differently and you approach opportunities differently based on what you believe is age appropriate. Meanwhile, your brain is also running temporal landmark thinking. It categorizes your life into chapters and assumes that certain opportunities only exist in certain chapters. But here's the thing, your brain is wrong about all of this. The chapters of your life aren't determined by your age, they're determined by your choices. And studies show that people who reject age stereotypes and maintain a growth mindset actually perform better cognitively, recover faster from setbacks, and live longer than those who buy into the I'm too old narrative. Your brain, you see, is capable of neuroplasticity, literally rewiring itself well into your 80s and 90s. But if you keep telling it that you're too old to learn, too old to grow or change, it will believe you and make that your reality. It's part of the reason why I even started this podcast about, and even our business, where we talk about rewriting the stories that we tell ourselves. Because when we rewrite those stories, we are making our reality. So let me tell you something that might surprise you. Starting later in life isn't a disadvantage, it's often a superpower. And here's why: you have clarity. At 50, you're not trying to figure out who you are or what you value, hopefully. You know what lights you up and you know what drains you. You can make decisions faster because you're not paralyzed by infinite possibilities. You have resources, financial resources, yes, but also relational resources. You've got knowledge resources. You've got credibility resources. And these things take decades to accumulate. You also have perspective. You've seen enough cycles to know that setbacks are temporary and that most emergencies aren't really emergencies. This emotional stability is incredibly valuable when building something new. When you're older, you have less to prove. You're not starting a business to impress your college friends or launching a career to make your parents proud. You're doing it because it matters to you, which is a much more sustainable motivation. It also, age brings selective focus. You don't have to waste time on things that don't matter. So you naturally prioritize what does. This laser focus is something that 25-year-olds spend years trying to develop. The question isn't whether you're too old to start. The question is whether you're going to use your age as an excuse or as an advantage. So, speaking of age and rest, this episode is brought to you by my program, Sleep Remastered, the guide to transformative rest. One of the biggest challenges I hear from people in their 40s and 50s and beyond, and even the younger folks as well, is that their sleep isn't what it used to be. You fall asleep fine, but wake up at like 3 a.m., or you lie awake for hours trying to fall asleep, or you wake up feeling tired, or no matter how long you slept. But here's what I've learned: it's not about getting more sleep, it's about getting better sleep. You see, Sleep Remastered gives you 7 targeted audio sessions, ranging from 7 to 30 minutes in length, and they're designed specifically for busy folks with limited sleep time. We cover everything from rapid sleep onset techniques to 3 a.m. wake up recovery protocols, and even my favorite, the power nap optimization. You'll also get a 30-day implementation guide to help you transform ordinary rest into extraordinary restoration. The goal isn't to necessarily to sleep longer. It's to fall asleep faster, return to sleep easier, and wake up more energized even with the same number of sleep hours. So Sleep Remastered is available exclusively inside the StoryShift Circle Inner Circle program. This is my private membership community, and for just $9 a month or $50 for the year, you'll get access to Sleep Remastered plus our full library of guided sessions, weekly live content, and supportive community of growth-minded individuals, all working to rewrite their stories. You can visit coachingkaleidoscope.com/school to join us, because whether you're starting something new at 30, 50, or 70, you need quality rest to fuel quality action. All right, so let's go back to rewriting that age excuse. So there are 4 common ways this too old signal shows up. See if you recognize yourself in any of these. The first one is the timeline excuse. I should have done this 20 years ago. Now, this assumes there's only one right time to pursue any goal. And if you missed it, too bad. But Most meaningful pursuits don't have expiration dates. The next one is the energy excuse. I don't have the energy that I used to have. Now, this conflates physical energy with creative energy and ignores the fact that wisdom often compensates for whatever physical energy you might have lost. Then there's the relevance excuse. The world has passed me by. I'm outdated. Now, this assumes that experience becomes worthless over time, when in reality, your unique perspective is often exactly what's needed. Then there's the time excuse. I don't have enough time left to make this worthwhile. This one's particularly heartbreaking because it assumes that impact requires decades when sometimes the most meaningful contributions happen quickly. Now, each of these excuses sounds logical on the surface. They're all based on false assumptions about how success, fulfillment, and contributions actually work. So, what can we do to fight this? Here's where your this week's reset tool comes into play. We'll call this the advantage inventory. So instead of saying I'm too old to start over, try this. My experience gives me advantages that younger people don't have. But this reset requires you to get specific about what those advantages actually are. So here's your advantage inventory exercise. So step one, I want you to list all of your accumulated assets, not just the financial stuff, but your skills, your network, your knowledge, your reputation, your understanding of how things work. Step two, I want you to identify your clarity gains. So, like, what do you know about yourself now that you didn't know at 25? What values are crystal clear? What matters the most to you? Number three, catalog your perspective advantages. What have you learned from previous challenges that would help you now? How has experience made you more resilient, more strategic, more realistic about timelines? Step four, acknowledge your freedom factors. What obligations have you completed? What people-pleasing tendencies have you outgrown? What external pressures matter less to you now? And finally, step five, I want you to connect the dots. How do these advantages specifically apply to what you want to pursue? How does your age make you better suited for this goal, not worse? You see, the goal isn't to pretend that age doesn't matter. The goal is to recognize that it matters in ways that often work in your favor. So let's take some and get some perspective on what's possible when you stop using your age as an excuse. Laura Ingalls Wilder didn't publish her first Little House book until she was 65. Colonel Sanders, who created the KFC franchise, he was 62 years old when he did that. Vera Wang, the designer, entered fashion at 40. Anna Mary Robertson Moses, better known as Grandma Moses, didn't start painting until she was 78 and became one of America's most celebrated folk artists. But you don't have to become famous to make your latter in life pursuits meaningful. Some of the most fulfilled people I know started their most important chapter after 50. The teacher who became a therapist at 55, the corporate executive who opened a bakery at 48, the retiree who learned photography in their 60s and now documents family histories. Their age didn't hold them back. It informed their approach and gave them credibility and provided emotional stability to weather the challenges of starting something new. Because here's something that I want you to consider. The regret of not trying is always greater than the regret of trying and failing. You see, at 50, 60, or 70, looking back on opportunities you didn't pursue because you thought you were too old is way more painful than looking back on attempts that didn't work out perfectly. In fact, those things become part of your story, the lore of what you tried and learned from. Because that's what failure is. Failure teaches you at this stage of life that you can handle it. Like, you've survived disappointments before. You have the resilience and the perspective to bounce back. And you have less ego invested in the outcome, which means you can pivot more easily when something isn't working. The 25-year-old who fails at something might spiral into an identity crisis. The 50-year-old who fails at something thinks, well, that didn't work, so what's next? That's not a disadvantage of age, that's wisdom. And wisdom is a competitive advantage. So this week, I want you to practice what I call age neutrality. Here's how. Notice any age-based self-talk. Catch yourself when you dismiss opportunities or ideas because of your age. Just notice it without judgment. And then I want you to challenge that timeline assumption. When you think, I should have done this years ago, ask yourself, says who? Based on what rule? I want you to reframe experience as preparation. Instead of seeing your past as time lost, see it as preparation for what's next. Every skill learned, every relationship built, every lesson earned has been preparing you for this moment. Focus on contributions, not duration. Instead of asking, how much time do I have left? Ask, what impact can I make with the time that I have? Surround yourself with age-neutral inspiration. Seek out stories of people who started new chapters, and they started those chapters later in life. Let their examples expand your sense of what's possible. And here's what I wish someone had told me when I started questioning whether I was too old for certain dreams. You're not starting from zero. You're starting from a foundation of experience, from wisdom, and from resources that took decades to build. You don't have to prove yourself the way a 25-year-old does. You don't have to stumble through the same learning curve. You don't have to make the same mistakes that inexperience creates. You get to start from competence, not from confusion, from clarity, not from chaos, from purpose, not just possibility. And that's not settling for less. That's starting for more. So if you're ready to stop letting age be an excuse and start using it as an advantage, I invite you to join us inside the StoryShift Circle. This is my private community for growth-minded individuals who are serious about transformation. For just $9 a month or $50 for the year, you'll get access to several guided hypnotherapy sessions. I'm in the community weekly doing live content. We have exclusive challenges like the Get Started Challenge that we did a few weeks back. And there's a supportive community of people who understand that your best chapter might still be ahead of you. So in order to join, visit coachingkaleidoscope.com/school. That's SKOOL. And that's how you join us. So until next time, remember, your age is not a limitation, it's a qualification. The years you've lived aren't time wasted. They're preparation completed. The experience you gained isn't outdated knowledge. It's wisdom that can't be Googled. There is no expiration date on dreams, no age limit on impact, no deadline for becoming who you're meant to be. The only timeline that matters is the one you choose to honor. So thanks for being here. And thanks for being willing to question the stories our culture tells us about age and possibility. Thanks for considering that maybe, just maybe, your best chapter is still ahead of you. And I'll see you next week with another subliminal signal that's probably keeping you smaller than you're meant to be. Until then, keep resetting, and remember, it's not too late, it's exactly the right time.